All right. The moment Trump announced the auto pen rulings, the moment he declared that 92% of the Biden era executive actions were invalid, the federal bureaucracy reacted exactly how you would expect. Not with honesty, not with transparency, not with concern for the American people, but with panic. Because every agency head, every appointed deputy, every acting director, every lifetime bureaucrat suddenly realized something terrifying. They had been operating under fake authority. And the guy who just returned to the office actually knows where the levers are. So we're going to walk through what happened behind closed doors because this is the part the media will never touch. But insiders know is dead on accurate. All right. With minutes of Trump's announcement, internal emails across Washington started firing like the 4th of July finale. Hold all regulatory actions. Pause all enforcement guidance. Do not contact outside partners without clearance. Do not speak to the press. Await further instructions. The panic wasn't philosophical, operational. That's because the agencies all realizing the same thing. Their homework assignment had just been graded. And it turns out the teacher didn't sign the instructions. All those memos, all those directives, all of those pursuant to the president's authority letters, trash, shredded, illegitimate. That is a nightmare scenario for bureaucrats, running a government without real authority and being caught after the fact. These people aren't mad at Trump because he's wrong. They're mad at Trump because he's right. And the next wave of panic wasn't political, it was legal. Each agency's general counsel suddenly found themselves staring at a potential lawsuits that could cripple budgets, invalidate rulings, reopen settled cases, reverse fines, void penalties, and erase years of regulatory expansion. Imagine being the attorney at the EPA who spent 4 years enforcing regulations that now have no lawful signature. Imagine being the lawyer at the ATF who aggressively prosecuted cases based on directives that were never signed by an actual president. Imagine being counsel at DHS who greenlit policies on immigration, visas, asylum, refugee allocation, parole programs, and border operations, only to find out that the documents were signed by a robotic arm instead of the commander in chief. The lawyers know what that means. They know this. Every rule they enforced, every penalty they issued, every mandate they applied, every threat they levied, every enforcement action they executed was built on sand. Lawyers hate sand. Those folks are built for concrete. And the Biden presidency just turned into a beach. Now, here's the next telltale sign that the Biden era governance was fake. The media is barely touching the story. Oh, they'll spin it. Oh, they'll try to bury it. They'll label it as procedural. They'll call it technical. And they'll claim that presidents have always used the auto pens. What they won't tell you is the difference between using an auto pen to sign a holiday card and using it to sign immigration policies, energy regulations, transportation rules, environmental standards, federal spending authorizations, COVID-related directives, defense realignments, border enforcement priorities, education guidance, ATF rule expansions, IRS memoranda, and executive orders that restructure entire industries. And the media knows something devastating. If the public fully understands what happened, Biden isn't remembered as the empathetic president. He's remembered as the absent president, the ceremonial president, the unaware president, the bypassed president. He becomes a figurehead in a White House run by staff, donors, NGOs, and political operatives. That destroys the narrative. It also destroys their credibility. That destroys the myth of the stable hand. So they're doing what the media does best. They're pretending the house isn't on fire while the smoke pours out of every window on live TV. Right, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, the organizations that get fat federal grants to push ideological pet projects, have the most to lose here, because nearly all Biden-era grant expansions were signed, you guessed it, by the auto pan. Climate grants, gender equity grants, DEI consulting contracts, activist funding, school equity integration grants, nonprofit immigration allocations, public health outreach initiatives. All of it was authorized through batches, not the president. And NGOs know that the clock just hit zero, because Trump isn't just undoing Biden's fake signatures, he's reviewing every single dollar that flowed from them. And they're already preparing legal statements. We acted in good faith. We relied on government direction. We had no reason to question the signature. Well, yeah, but that's how federal law works. If the signature is invalid, then the authority is invalid. And if the authority is invalid, your funding is invalid. This is why the NGO world is in a quiet panic spiral. They know they're about to experience the first real audit of their existence in decades. Ah, yes, the DOJ. The same DOJ that spent years pretending Biden was actively running the country is now facing the very real possibility that thousands of pages of policy guidance, regulatory interpretation, and enforcement memoranda were never legitimately authorized. You can't charge people under fake rules. You can't prosecute under illegitimate authority. You can't pursue cases based on signatures that were never signed. And the DOJ knows this. And they also know that they may have wrongfully prosecuted American citizens. They also know that they know cases may collapse. They know that plea deals may be reversed. They know appeal courts may start asking questions. The DOJ's panic isn't partisan, it's existential. Because once the public realizes how many Biden-era enforcement actions were rooted in forged authority, the trust in the DOJ drops from low to zero. Okay, now, here's the spicy piece nobody is supposed to mention. The intelligence community is furious. FBI, CIA, NSA, not at Biden, not at the White House, not at the process, but at Trump. Why? Well, because this exposure reveals how much the intelligence community workflow was built around presidential authority that Biden never personally reviewed. Things like intelligence directives, foreign aid authorizations, sanction expansions, counterterrorism reallocations, cybersecurity priorities, declassification orders, renewal of covert programs, all run through a president who wasn't aware enough to sign his own damn name. So that's why the intelligence community is panicking, because they rely on the illusion that the president is in charge. And if the public realizes that he wasn't, then the entire myth of the quote adult in the room collapses. And the shadow government loses its camouflage. So if you want to know when Washington is truly afraid, just look at the K Street lobbyists. They have been calling each other nonstop since Trump's declaration because they just realized they spent 4 years buying influence that might have zero retroactive value. You can't enforce contracts or agreements tied to invalid signatures. You can't leverage regulatory outcomes if the regulations themselves disappear. You can't advise corporate clients to comply with the rules that now legally don't exist. Lobbyists live in a world of certainty. Biden's auto pin created uncertainty. Trump's exposure created chaos. And now these folks are scrambling. Washington's consultant class has just got sent back to analog. They're practically taking notes with crayons at this point. Wow. Sources inside multiple agencies have used the same word. Bad. Bad. Not regrettable. Not concerning. Not suboptimal. Bad. It's bad. Because everyone is realizing the same truth. If Biden wasn't personally signing these documents, he wasn't governing. And if he wasn't governing, then somebody else was. Who? You know who. Staff, senior advisors, policy czars, NGO actors with access badges, permanent bureaucrats who think America is their inheritance. They were running the show, while the president faded in and out like a radio broadcast during a hurricane. But all of it, leads to the moment we're heading to right now, when an entire when an entire era of governance is wiped clean. Because if 92% of the president's work was never valid, then America didn't get a policy reset. It got something bigger. All right. We're going to dive fully into this part 3 thing coming up. But here are the foundations. When the actions of a presidency vanish, the country restarts. Not symbolically or metaphorically, but legally. The country now has a new regulatory baseline, a new judicial landscape, a new administrative structure, a new federal posture, a new balance of power, and whether Washington likes it or not, a new beginning. Because the country didn't just elect Trump, it unelected Joe Biden retroactively. And that changes everything.